Thank you all for coming to this session. We hope that it will prove very rewarding for you. This is actually going to be a very interactive session. So if you thought that you weren't going to have to work hard, you're right, you won't have to, but it's going to be a lot of fun, I think. We've got 8 case studies put together, and we're going to have you split into 8 groups. And we're going to have you work through case studies in your group, and then we're going to get back together, and we're going to talk about those case studies and how you solve them, how you work through them. I'm assuming that everybody here, most people here, have been involved with case management in some way or work with case managers. So this is going to be one of those interactive sessions that will actually help everybody learn from one another. We do this at our monthly meetings. We started doing them more actively at our monthly meetings in the Valley, and they've proven to be very successful and also very rewarding for people because you get an idea of how each person works with a client and how they solve particular situations. So what I'd like is to have our group, a group of case managers is actually going to be facilitating. I'd like them to introduce themselves, and then what I like to do is go around the room really quickly, and I'd like you to introduce yourself, what agency you're with, and what position you have with your agency as well. So that way we get a feel for who it is that's in the room. So let's start here with Janice.
All right. Okay, so good morning. I'm Janice Weiss, and I'm the reentry coordinator for the Mat-Su Valley. And I'm saying Mat-Su because I know, but because I heard there's valleys in Juneau and in Fairbanks that they refer to the valley, so it got confusing. So Mat-Su.
I'm Michelle Overstreet, and I'm the executive director of My House that provides youth drop-in center services for age 14 to 24 in the Mat-Su Valley.
I'm Henry Woodall. I'm a Presbyterian minister in the Mat-Su Valley and then also president of Valley Charities.
I'm Carrie Gaston, Blood and Fire Ministries in the Mat-Su Valley.
What's your role?
Oh, executive director.
My name is Ginger Bear. I'm a case manager at Family Promise in the Mat-Su Valley.
My name is Adam Pollock, and I'm the case manager for Valley Charities.
I'm Dave Rose, and I'm the coordinator with the coalition in the Valley.
Thank you. Carrie is also a case manager, by the way, in addition to her role there. So she's got a lot going on. And Michelle does some case management from time to time as well. So I wanted to make sure I pointed that out. So we'll start here and we'll work our way back. Just real quick, your location and your position.
Thank you. Denise Gilroy, Nome, Alaska. I'm the executive director for Independent Living Center, Arctic Access.
Diana Sturgis, I'm from Nome. I'm the director of our homeless cold weather shelter and our permanent supported housing.
Rhonda Schneider, also from Nome, and I'm the executive director of Nome Community Center, which operates our housing and homeless shelter programs.
Good morning, I'm Sharon Clark. I'm from Nenana, and I'm a member of the Alaska Mental Health Board.
Oh, sorry.
Good morning, Catherine Rose, Mat-Su Borough School District Homeless Liaison.
Good morning, Glenna Baca, SSVF Program Manager at the Fairbanks Rescue Mission in the Valley of Fairbanks.
Chris Gear, Fairbanks Rescue Mission. I'm the day shelter manager. I do case working for a transitional program.
Jason Patsky, also with the Fairbanks Rescue Mission. I'm the case manager for the SSVF program.
Allison Bushnell, I'm the housing intake specialist at Loving of the Kenai Peninsula.
Leslie Rohr, executive director, Loving Kenai Peninsula.
John Cochran, president of the board, Bethel Winter House.
Hey, Greg Stuckey. I live in Palmer, but I'm working in Anchorage as the HUD's administrator for Office of Native American Programs.
Hi, Diana Carpenter. I work in Anchorage at the Alaska Training Cooperative. I'm not a case manager. We train and coordinate training for case managers and DSPs.
Hi, Kathy Stone. I'm with the Public Housing Division for Alaska Housing Finance Corporation.
Sean Gilman. I'm on the board with the Alaska Coalition on Homeless and Housing, or Housing and Homelessness.
Karma Reed. I'm with the Anchorage HUD office.
Sasha Moore. I'm clinic manager for Front Street Clinic in Juneau, Alaska, where the Valley is.
Hi, I'm Heidi Compton. I work at Cook Inlet Housing Authority, and I'm a program coordinator.
Yolanda Thomas from the Mat-Su-Boro School District, Families in Transition.
Deborah Price, hi, how are you? Families in Transition in the Mat-Su.
Sherry Smith, I'm the Executive Director of the Lee Shore Center in Kenai, which is services for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault.
Lisa Sauter, Executive Director for Beans Cafe and the Children's Lunchbox, and a board member for the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness.
My name is Lisa Scarborough. I'm with Love in Action. I'm in Ketchikan. We don't have any valleys. I'm on an island with a lot of water around it. And I have a BHAP grant.
I'm Jane Strait with United Way of Anchorage.
I'm Elaine Phillips with Habitat for Humanity here in Anchorage, Alaska, and on the Coalition for Anchorage Homeless Coalition.
Didn't mean to rush you, sorry. I'm Georgianne Hampton. I'm a housing coordinator for Interior Alaska Center for Nonviolent Living in Fairbanks.
Good morning. My name is Betty Svensson. I'm the Deputy Director of the Alaska Municipal League, and I also sit on the Governor's Council for Homelessness.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Skovic, Policy Analyst with Cook Inlet Housing here in Anchorage.
Nice to meet you all that come from the Valley. So now what we're going to do is a little exercise called Get Into 8 Groups. So what I'd like you to do is, this is going to be a challenge, isn't it? But you know, we're all, according to what I've heard, even though you are not all from the Valley, I think we can handle this. So we've got, if we can fill up some tables, that table's almost full, that table, so if we can have you folks move back to that table. Have you folks move back to that table, please? Yeah, back there. Have some people join this table. Right. And we may take some of you away if we end up with short of 8 tables, which we may. How many do we have here? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's form a table. Did I count you guys? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's take two people from this table, have you come back here. 2 people from here, come on over here. Oh, did we? Okay. Okay. Come on over here. Let's have 1 person from this table come on over. How many people do you have for case study?
We're good.
We're good? 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 Why don't you go back? No, she's there. I'm trying to get a read on who's who. Are you back there, Carrie? That 2?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Well, I got 1 more table. We'll get him put together right here. Deb. Deb, would you mind coming over to this table, please? How many case studies? How many participants are there? 2, good. So you should be okay. I'll send another person over if they count. Okay. There are facilitators at each table. They're going to pass out the case study to you, and they're also going to pass out the document that we use in the Valley, a screening form, as well as the income guidelines that we use and how we formatted it so it's very easy for a case manager to use, as well as the HUD fair market rent rates. All that information is important for you to use. The facilitator is going to ask for participants to serve in the role as a case manager and then also clients. And if you look at the case study, it explains what the role of the client is. The case manager or the facilitator is going to read you the case study background, and you can read it as well. But before you get started on that, we need to select people that are going to be the case managers and people that are going to be the clients. So why don't you do that first? We're going to take 10 minutes to run through the case studies individually in a group, and then we're all going to get together and discuss it. So go ahead and go for it. Okay, going to have you all, we're going to bring everybody together now. We're going to discuss this as a group. We're going to attempt to, if I can have Dave Rose stop talking. Thank you, Dave Rose. This is what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be passing the mic around to a table and going to have the case study read that table was working on. Going to read the background and read the client information. I know that there's a lot of different scenarios for these, which is great. That's what we wanted, is having you think about, this is what case managers have to work with. There are multiple cases within a case. So you have to determine what it is that you can do and you can't do and how to help them the best. So when I pass the mic around, have somebody read the case study, read what the client information is, and then I'd like the group to discuss how you handle that particular case study. And then we're going to do that briefly, and then I'd like to have the group chime in, and when you have something that you'd like to comment on to maybe help with that case study, raise your hand and then I'll bring the mic to you. Okay? So we're going to start over here with Pastor or Reverend Henry Woodall.
Talking to Reverend Karen. Yeah. Yes. So this is a case study. The background is you get a call from a church about a homeless family of 3 that is camping in their parking lot. They have been there for over 2 months. They use the church for showers, but still seem to have a hygiene problem with their clothes. The church is getting complaints from members of the congregation that they are soliciting for food. The church suspects that they are getting money because they travel quite a bit in their camper. How can you help the family and the church? And the case manager is going to use the screening piece here. The client information is the husband receives $936 through SSDI. The wife receives $656 from SSI. They also get $450 worth of food stamps. We created a child that was 6 years old. It wasn't specified, but that's what we have over here. They drove up from Iowa 3 months ago with the promise of a job for the wife. The job fell through, and they are now concerned because winters are cold here. And that's where we started. The case manager can tell you how she performed.
Well, I don't know. I don't think I did a very good job because I just kind of stumbled along. But we do think this family would qualify for programs if there are programs on the income limits in the back. I tried to problem solve with them about what they want to do. Do they want to go back to Iowa? Do they want to stay here? What areas of employment was the wife looking in? Could she look for other places? And then also talking to them a little bit about how they're interacting with the church congregants to make that more palatable.
It just seemed to us that with the money they're bringing in, that they have plenty of money to make things work with a little help, but they just didn't know where to go or what to do to access that information.
Again, as I was looking at this situation, I would think that it really is. It's possible that they've been camping for a couple of, I mean, they live in the church parking lot, but then they're doing other camping trips. It's Alaska. It's the summer. You do that while you do it, and now it's getting cold. And so they may be ready to have those conversations now. I don't know. Greg, anything?
Anybody want to add? Okay.
So my understanding too is that the congregants were complaining about the clothing, which raises a red flag for me. If you got, there's laundromats around, but the isolation is there. So I would also, is there something going on between those two? Because one is, they're being isolated, they're not going out to a laundromat, they're not cleaning their clothes. Obviously, they're not buying groceries because they're asking others for food. So there's a dynamic going on that should raise some red flags.
Good. Anybody else want to comment on that? Again, there are a lot of different ways to look at the case studies and a lot of questions to ask. That form, again, is used by the case managers in the Valley over the phone. So they will screen people using that form to determine whether they qualify or do not qualify to have that face-to-face meeting, to then fill out the intake form. Because remember, the Valley is very spread out, geographically challenged, so we don't want to put a burden on people having to come into the office if they're not going to be getting anything from a grant. So we want to make sure we have that conversation over the phone with the client, and all those questions, there's lots of questions to ask, one after the other, that will come up, and you all brought them out. Very good. So we'll go here to Dave Rose's table, and I'll have to time him.
Watch how quick this is. All right, so background. We find out from another homeless assistance partner that a client we assisted 2 months ago with rent is calling them for help on their electric bill. They're calling us for a consult. Although the client's rent is current, it seems they're behind 2 months on their electric bill and shut-off is imminent. They say it's because of a change of income. According to the AKCH2, when they saw you, the girlfriend and boyfriend were both working. The boyfriend's one-year temp job has just ended as scheduled. The boyfriend's determined to look for work and has not filed for unemployment yet. The girlfriend's making $800 a month. Their apartment rent is $750 a month, and that does not include the utilities. They also get $250 a month in food stamps, and their electric bill is behind $350. So the client information was the boyfriend has a construction background, but he doesn't have any skills at creating a resume or interviewing. The couple's new to the state of Alaska. The girlfriend's working part-time, but wants to work full-time. She also is inexperienced with resume and interviewing skills, and she recently watched Judge Judy and realized she needs to find a more motivated boyfriend. So we talked about several things. We talked about the fact that he had this job and he knew it was coming to the end and there was no real planning or forethought into that. He hasn't applied for unemployment. He hasn't really gone out and looked for other jobs that we can see. So it's kind of something they should have seen coming and didn't really prepare for. They definitely income qualify, and we'd probably be able to give them some help to pay their electric bill and stay in housing, provided we could see some sort of forward momentum. We'd kind of like to get them over to job service and get them some interviewing skills classes and help create a resume. And we may even ask them to go do that and bring that resume back for us before we'll cut them a check for the electric bill. Did you have anything else? I think that's kind of where we're at. You want to say something? No. About getting a new boyfriend or something? Yeah. Oh yeah, and she wants the boyfriend.
Yeah. The girlfriend wants him to go out and get a real job.
Hey, I've been busy. I'm in construction. You don't even get up and make my lunches in the morning before I go.
We have a domestic squabble here. Anybody want to comment on that particular case study? How you would handle it?
I know from some previous work I did with AHFC that they have financial management classes, real basic skill level, and it's online, or I don't know if they do it in person, they might, but that might be a thought for this particular group.
I work for AHFC, and we have, if you're income qualified, so you have to be low income, at or below 80% of area median income, that we have a Jumpstart program, and that'll provide like financial incentives for education or savings, or sometimes it'll just provide like, we'll pay for your like uniform, like if you work in a nursing job or something. So if you reach out to that group, they can help too, but you do have to be receiving housing assistance from us to get that. And there is online money management classes as well. Those are for anybody.
Are they? Oh, thank you. Can you reach? And if they're age 14 to 24 and they qualify for youth services, which if they're at risk for being homeless, they would, we can do ready-to-rent classes so they can calculate their rent. We can do, 9-Star has some similar programs where they can provide work uniforms. We have partnerships with NIT so they can get additional job training, relationship with Job Corps, relationship with other employers around town so that we could help them get reemployed. Classes on how to buy a used car and understanding compounded interest and credit cards, things that my staff frequently sits in on because I have a youth-oriented staff, young people, and it blows me away, the amount of information that can be useful to a young couple like that that's life-changing. So if you can find those services.
The classes online FDIC Money Smart program is really beneficial as well. It's all online, pretty awesome classes for people if they can't get to places. Also, work on job trainings, sending them to a class so that they can boost their resume in the interim between work is really good for people.
Thank you. Thank you for that feedback. Okay, this group back here.
Okay, the case background, you are speaking with a woman who makes $2,000 a month in earned income. She does not get food stamps. She is facing an eviction from her longtime residence of more than 2 years. She found herself in a pickle because her paycheck was torn up by the dog. As a result, she is a month and a half behind on her rent. Her rent is $900, gas is $75, budget billing. The electric fluctuates from $50 to $200 monthly. The car payment and insurance costs $350 a month. It is winter, and although her landlord is reluctant to evict, he is getting pressure from other tenants to treat her as he would treat them. Okay, so the client, I think there was a typo in this one, so I'm going to read it the way that we changed it. Okay. Client lives alone since husband died 3 years ago. He lived in this home, and it said, we're going to say 20 years. We're going to change the top part to 20. And then that they've been in for 20 because there's two different. Okay, so we're going to say they've been in the home for 20 years. She has money in savings but does not want to use it. Okay?
Well, we didn't really have the second part because the way it was written, it was like two different case studies. So, but it turns out she's over income. And we talked about communicating with her employer to get another check made, or her landlord to wait until she can get her other check.
I was the client, the difficult one. But then after thinking about it, we thought, well, maybe there's something more going on. Her husband died 3 years ago. Maybe she was angry because it wasn't her dog that ate the check. It was actually the tenant's dog that ate the check. Yeah, the landlord's dog that ate the check, sorry. So there could be she just needs to talk to somebody, or maybe something else going on. She's just afraid of what her future may look like.
Okay, thank you. Comments?
Refer out to grief counseling, even though she is over income. There's grief counseling, and talk to the individual about budget billing on her utilities rather than the fluctuations that could occur. Budget billing is a really good one.
Good comments. Oh, we're going back.
We would have certainly talked to her about grief counseling, except for when we were reading this, it was reading as two different cases. So we didn't connect the lady that lost her husband to the lady with the dog eating the check. It was typos.
Okay, I wanted to make sure I was going the right way. Any other comments? Let's go right here.
So the background is you receive a message from a man needing help with rent and utilities. He was originally referred to you by MEA, which is Matanuska Electric Association, 1 week ago. The man called you late Thursday after you'd left. The shutoff notice to be issued on Friday at the end of the day. The information about the client is that the person makes $1,500 per month working part-time, married, no kids, rent is $650, utilities are $75 monthly on a fixed payment plan. He's behind 3 months on utilities and now owes $300, and rent is due next week. So
I was the case manager for this one. I actually didn't catch that he was married, so my answers would probably change. He is income qualified, so he would, work with the assistance. We could get him the assistance and the help. We would refer him out to like My House or other agencies that work with their age range. Also talk with them about job training, going full-time instead of part-time, getting more income, finding out what the wife is doing, trying to get more income into the household.
It's always interesting watching everybody go, oh, I don't want to touch that microphone. Don't give it to me. Any comments from anybody else in the room? No comments? Does that mean yeah? Yeah. Oh. I'll get in trouble if I don't hand this to you.
I was just wondering, it seems like he's quite behind in some things and he's procrastinating, obviously, Thursday night and it's due the next day. So maybe have a discussion. Again, those things are kind of red flag for me. It's like, what's going on? Why is the wife not doing anything? And also, why are you waiting till the last minute?
Good feedback. Anybody else? Hold on. You guys are already upset about the boyfriend. Okay, let's go back here.
Okay, so the background is I am speaking on the phone with a mother of 3 kids, 2 boys ages 5 and 9 and a girl age 13. She's calling to get assistance with a gas bill for $300 and an electric bill for $150. She does not pay these bills within a week. She will receive a cutoff notice. So the client's issue is that she's a mother with an income of $2,000 a month. Her rent is $1,000 a month, but she's missed a paycheck, which is why she's asking for help, and the landlord has threatened eviction. So as I went over so I was the case manager, so as I went over the application with the client, she does work full-time. She's been in her apartment for 1.5 years, and she has never asked for any kind of assistance from anybody else before. She's been able to pay her bills every month. What happened was that her son was sick for a couple of weeks, and she lost some work. She's also been trying religiously to pick up extra hours and extra shifts so that she can get ahead. She feels like when she gets some help with the utilities, she would be fine with her rent. So that's kind of where we were at with this. I would have recommended assisting her with her background. There wasn't anything that I saw that came out in the case management that showed that she was using the system or that it looked like she was pretty stable. Yeah, right. And we assume that your children on insurance, right? We made that part up. We just assumed she wasn't going to have any recurring medical bills from this, that the children were on Denali Kid Care, and that and she was under income, kind of on the edge, but under income. So, do you want to add anything to that? I think that's great. Okay.
Good job. Any other feedback? Anybody else? Would you handle it differently?
So she was a single mother, correct? I might just ask questions around the child support situation and see if it's something she's been awarded, if she's collecting, if there's an agency that can help her collect. It's the only thing I thought of. Ah, okay.
So if the father passed away, there should be death benefit. And it's probably really hard, but she's spending half of her paycheck on rent. Has she kind of looked around for anything? Is there anything cheaper that maybe she could move into? Can she get rid of the children? No.
Remind me not to have you as my case manager. It's the boyfriend and now it's the kids. Oh my gosh.
A couple of the cases have dealt with utilities that are due, and I just wonder about, one of the things we can do in our community is our utility carrier will work on a repayment plan. And they're usually pretty generous about spanning it out far enough that they can repay. Because sometimes folks don't know that option's available to them, and they don't like asking for assistance, especially in a situation like that where they've never had to ask before. This is the first time. It's kind of embarrassing. And if we can help them get connected with a repayment plan, then our resources aren't tapped, and then they have, just feel better about themselves, that they can take care of it themselves.
Good feedback.
And it's interesting. With our two utilities in the Mat-Su Valley, the providers approach it in different ways. We've got an awesome relationship with MEA because John's talked to them and talked to their director. And the minute one of our case managers call and pledge, they say, okay, we'll take them off the hassle list because you've pledged you're going to help out. The other, they don't care who you are or what's going on. So we're still working on and developing a relationship there.
All of these can be used to refer out to other agencies like food banks or food pantries so that they can utilize their other income to pay for rent and utilities rather than just on food or other things.
So I just had a question, maybe someone in the group knows. I was curious, I asked my table and we couldn't come up with an answer. So what is the process if this scenario that we had with the person who was 3 months behind and their shut-off date was, tomorrow, what is the process if, say, that individual or someone that lives in the home has a medical condition that requires that they have, for instance, an oxygen concentrator or a CPAP machine, something that is dependent on electricity for their survival medically?
Okay. Hold on. This is the rule. You have to do it. There you go.
I speak really loud, though. Most of the time, I don't use one. So there is a law, an ADA. You can take a doctor's note to that utility, and they absolutely must work with your client. It is the law. Absolutely. It's pretty much federal. Yeah, it's all wrapped around ADA. So it's like, you know, if you have a consumer that has missed their PFD because of their disability, you can still apply later. It's the same process. You go with that consumer to the medical appointment, they fill out a specific form, you mail that form in, and that form is the legal binding that says this person is receiving assistance and you are legally bound to do that.
Yeah, thank you. Who? I'm walking over here. I don't know who I'm going to. Oh, I know. I haven't forgotten you.
Okay, so here's a little background. I received a frantic call at 4 p.m. on a Thursday from a woman that lives alone. In the message, she also mentions that her roommates, Bob and Carol. After I calmed her down, I discovered that she's facing a shutoff at 5 p.m. that day. So, first things first, she's over. Oh, she makes $1,700 a month. She lived in an apartment. She's lived in an apartment for more than 2 years without trouble, and lives alone with her 2 pets, Bob and Carol. She was sick and missed 4 days of work. So she was over the limit as a single person living alone. So the suggestion was, well, I asked a lot of questions, but the suggestion was that she try to call the utilities and see if she can make an arrangement. Because obviously she didn't get the notice that day, so she knew. And, you know, give her other resources in the community to see if they could help, because she was over the limit for us.
One of the things that I recommend, I recommended this to all my clients. I'm a case manager up in Fairbanks, and this has come up with these other ones as well. Budget. And when I first introduced the idea to them, it's not how are you going to spend your money, but look at where you are spending your money. So let's see where it's going right now. Then we can look at redirecting it to go where it needs to go. So that was one of my suggestions.
Her situation, though, she has 1 hour before the cutoff time, and so trying to do budgeting at that point isn't going to be vital at that point. But it's kind of like you can always bring it back around and say, hey, we can work on budgeting, but also making suggestions. Do you have a friend? Do you belong to a church? Is there anybody that you can call that will loan you the money? Do you have a credit card, or can you go and pawn something? You know, because we look and grasp at everything and still try to make the clients understand their situation and see what they can do. I was over Loving Clearinghouse for several years before I went to SSVF, and so this was a typical scenario. And so you're always trying to think ahead of the game and talking to the utility company. Golden Valley and Fairbanks will work out a plan with you, providing you haven't used that and gone against it in the past. So there's always those scenarios that you're always having to work at. This was the first time I was the client, so it was kind of fun for a change.
I helped write that role play. Did you guys catch at all that maybe she's got some mental issues, identifying Bob and Carol as her roommates? Okay. That was part of the intent there. And I think that's something we all need to be aware of, because I think statistics show the majority of those who get this far down the road in a pickle have some mental challenges of some sort. And folks say that homelessness itself is reflective of the mental stress involved. You need someone else to come alongside. So I'm really glad you identified this person needs someone to talk to. So thank you.
Yeah, we're getting short on time, so I'll have them go and then have you comment again, okay?
Oh, okay.
Okay, so considering I work in reentry, we had an appropriate case. So I'll start by telling you the background. Although we changed our person to a female because, she's a female. So our client was a female. So you were speaking on the phone. Our case manager was speaking on the phone with a recently released felon. She served a 2-year sentence for drug possession. She was referred to you by her parole officer for rent assistance. She's living with a friend that has a shady history, and the parole officer believes that her chances of success are greater living in another place. She is projected to make about $1,200 per month on a new job she started a week ago. The ex-felon does not have a line on an apartment yet, which is another reason that she needs your help. So I'll let the case manager tell you what she did and make some suggestions. Oh, she's saying no, but here, I'll just start out by saying, because this was a case and we're looking at Mat-Su Valley, it was interesting at my table. I have Nanana and Nome and the Kenai. And so the Nome folks were doing the role play. And because they live in a community that is so self-contained, so, it's all right there, and they can see people and they talk to people. So they were having a really hard time with the concept of using the phone to talk to somebody because they really wanted to go in person. And even on the phone, they couldn't, pretend. It was like they were shaking hands and looking at each other. So that was an interesting difference between Nome and other places that are larger and, you have to drive around. So I found that interesting. And then they talked about trust a lot and how you build that trust with people by being able to look at them in the eye and, talk to them and see their faces and all of that and learn more about that person. But they did have some really good suggestions based on again, more looking at the Nome system and people coming out of prison in Nome. So I want you guys to talk about that.
So, I mean, some of what came up in the conversation was whether or not they were a tribal member or not. That would be really important for us to know right up front. And so I think just the fact that using a form was a little intimidating to us because our first couple of conversations probably would not be formal in any way. It would be more conversational, get to know them, maybe make 2 or 3 calls to gather that much information. And so that's just the dynamic of, our community, being in a small community. Some of the things you might typically ask is, when did you get out? How long have you been on the street? We probably already know that about them when they call. So a few things that are a little different, I think, in our scenario. But definitely dealing with somebody, who qualified for help and assistance and determining how to plug them into the community. We actually had so much conversation, we didn't even get through the whole exercise to start figuring out how we could plug her in. But it was good exercise. Thanks.
Well, one of the things we did determine, though, which was actually interesting, because Nome is, even though we're considered a city, we're still really a village. And so our population, the greater population, is Native Alaskans. And so what hit me was me being the client here and being a Caucasian out of prison 7 years. I actually, in Nome, being a Caucasian woman, would be the more vulnerable population. It would be way harder for me to obtain a job, to obtain housing, and to obtain a lot, because in our village, community, city, everything caters around the Native community. So we have tribal programs, we have Native housing, we have the job placement, we have COERC, we have all these corporations. So it just kind of made me look at it a little bit differently, because I think that being in Nome so long and this being we don't really think about those other situations when we get outside of Nome. We kind of cater what we do to exactly what is within Nome. So just something that.
Yeah, great feedback. Anybody else? Yes.
I just had a question about, I can appreciate the form that you do on the phone, but have you ever had the problem where you can't get someone to comply on the phone and talk to you? Is there another alternative so you don't lose these people through the cracks?
Adam's our lead case manager out in the valley.
I understand what you're saying, but it really hasn't ever become a problem because we always preface every start of the conversation with the best way for me to help you is to ask you some questions. Are you okay with that? So right off the bat, they're saying, I realize that I have to do this in order to get help or to try to get help. Some of the questions on the form, we don't ask line for line for line. It was just a format to kind of help people as well as people who don't do what we do so that they can pre-refer. But there's two things for us. One is that, like John said, we're talking 3 to 4 hours round trip to come in and talk to you personally and then find out you don't qualify. We don't want to put them through that. So we have to know before we make an appointment whether we're going to be able to help them or not. And the other part of it is that, you know, I guess I could call it a selfish perspective, is that when I've got a single mom with 3 kids and they're all crying in my office, it's a little harder to deny them and give them other options than it is over the phone.
I saw her head shake when you said about the mom and the kids. She was going, oh yeah, man, don't put them in my office. I have to turn them down. Final comments on what you were talking about earlier?
Well, the one thing is with case management is always making the client feel comfortable that you're asking questions so they can answer you. And it's not always hearing the answers, but what not they're saying as well. And so that can tell you a lot of difference. And some of our clients they can escalate their stories and make it bigger and better than what it actually is to play on your sympathy. So you have to stay calm and you have to listen to what they're saying and get ahead of the game. So not everybody has a mental issue, but sometimes they will come along and say something so that you're thinking there may be more people in the household that's going to be affected. And then when you start bringing the questions back around, then you find out some of the facts. So.
Great comment.
I was just going to add that one of the things I think about are not just red flags, but green flags. When you say, how long have you been in this apartment? 7 years without a problem. That's a green flag. So I'm always comparing red flags to green flags in my head as I'm talking to them. And then when the red flags are hitting, that just generates more questions when it doesn't sound right. When they're telling you something that doesn't sound right. You know, when you say, well, my 70-year-old grandma lives with us, but we don't have any income. Are you sure your grandmother is not receiving any benefits at all? Public assistance, Social Security? I mean, oh, I didn't know that meant income. Yeah, she's got. So it's the more things that we're sensing are not sounding right, the more questions we ask, until you've got a pretty good, you know, like the table in the back there. I think we were all hearing this is somebody we would have helped just based on a couple of minutes of what she had described. It was kind of a slam dunk. But for the other folks, it's really just being patient and trying for our best to let them know that we're trying to help them. Even if we can't cut a check, we want them to hang up by saying thank you for what you did do, which is giving them other options, giving them information to be in a position where we might be able to help them to qualify if they were just able to do a couple of more things. So.
Thank you, Adam. Can I have all the Matsu case manager folks, the folks that were part of the panel, including Janice, stand up, please? Including Dave Rose, my house. Could you give these guys a hand? And I wanted to say that, Henry, you're not a case manager, but thank you for standing up. Sort of. I'd like Henry, real quick, to talk about the collaboration that we've had with the churches in the Valley. And then there's a scenario, real quick scenario, that I wanted Carrie to mention to you that we've worked on, again, talking about collaboration, how we all work together to solve a situation.
So yeah, I serve a church in the Matsu, and how we have cooperated with a lot of the agencies, we have, as our deacons get a call, we have on-call group of folks that carry a cell phone through the week, and folks call our church, call that number, and then they're referred to this and they call them back at different times. So pretty much now, with all the BHAP and the continuum of care and all those kind of things happening in the Valley, our housing referral, we've really switched. We just kind of say, well, you really need to call, and we've got those agencies, there's 6 or 7 partners, and we say, you call those folks for housing because they will do much better for you, and they have way better resources than what we have. And so what that did is that did free up some money that we were usually helping with rent assistance, maybe $500,000 a month. That freed up money that we now do other things with. So it's really a training within our congregation and with the folks who answer the phone to refer and to say you can get help at these places, and then we form that partnership. And what we have done, what our church has done, is we then have given local donations rather than giving them to individuals as much as we give them to agencies. In other words, we support My House, we support the food pantry, we support, because they will do a much better job of getting that assistance, of vetting folks, and just doing a better job. So and again, in our local congregation, what that amounted to, anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 a year, was flowing into helping people, individually or locally. I mean, just frontline assistance, if you want to call it that. Well, now about $10,000, well, more than that actually, that money goes through agencies. We still have some money that we can give somebody $50 or take them to the pharmacy or get them a bus ticket, or we do stuff like that. But it's way easier, and we feel better about how our money's being spent, quite honestly. And it also puts our volunteers, who are not social workers, in their response is better, because we were trying to be social workers and case managers, and we didn't have the skills or the time or the energy to do it well.
Carrie Gaston with Blood and Fire Ministries, and John just wanted me to kind of let you guys know a situation as far as our collaboration. Dave Rose called me about a week and a half ago, and he's like, gives me this guy's name and gives me a scenario, and I'm like, David, he's a frequent flyer, and the last time I dealt with him, he didn't show up for his appointment, and there was just a lot of issues. So I told him that, maybe, figure out what you want to do, but you can always send him back to me if you need to. I don't know if he ever had that conversation with him or not, but the next day I was open for my food pantry. The guy shows up and starts talking to me about his scenario and his situation. And so I did another screening to see if he qualified. And at this point, what he had told David was something different than what he told me. And there's a lot of holes in it. So I just basically did the screening, say at this time you don't really qualify, but if you get to where you can, call me back and then we'll look at it. But chances are we probably won't help him because of he's definitely a long-term issue. But if we can, we'll try. But at this point, that collaboration, David felt, a lot better about the whole situation because he made that phone call and knew that, and we do that all the time. If we're not sure about somebody, and if you don't see them in the system, then we just check with each other. So.
Thank you, Carrie. So out in the Matsu Valley, she nailed it. That's just how we work together out in the valley with what we get for funds. The funds come through Valley Charities, and everybody else has got budgets that they follow and use to help people with, and we all collaborate with not only doing the conversations and case management situations, but we also will redirect some funds if they're needed, if one agency happens to be needing it and spending it in an area that they're now short on. So we all work together, whether it be the funding or whether it be the case management. And it's a great group. I'm very fortunate to be part of the group out in the valley. And how many people here are case managers? Could you raise your hand, please? And how many people work with case managers? Now, can you do something for me? Could you stand up and I'd like you to applaud yourselves because it's not easy. Give yourselves a hand. That was probably the hardest thing you've had to do, right? Having to applaud for yourself? Thank you all very much for coming. I hope that you got something from this. We have one more thing, Dave?
You just received a graphic of what it is we've done in the last year. And the reason what I want to point out is that all of these agencies that we work with as partners are listed there with their phone numbers. If you have any follow-up questions or comments, feel free to call any one of those numbers. Or at the very bottom is my email. And I just want to comment, I'm glad John had you applaud case managers and folks on the front line, because it is one of the toughest jobs, and they all earn their money and more. So thank you very much for them. But also, if you have a boss who does a good job and you want a really good video to send to them as a way of saying thank you, shoot me an email. I've got one. It's a YouTube that you will, it's wonderful, by a guy named Steve Graves put it together. But I want to say thank you to John Rossi, because he put this all together to highlight how we can help each other.
And with that, we're done. It's 11:15, right on the nose. Have a great rest of the day and get ready for lunch, I think.